What if I told you there's a small group of islands that were ethnically cleansed, illegally seized by the British, and could be where a war with Iran begins? Today, I'm going to talk to you about the Chagos Islands, also known as Diego Garcia. These islands are located right in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Anyone who controls them is able to project their power across a huge region, including Eastern Africa, Central Asia, Southern Asia, as well as the Middle East. The islands were originally colonized by the British, who brought African and Indian slaves over. Once these slaves were emancipated, there was this unique cultural blend that developed in a unique society, with their own language and customs. The Chagosians who lived there also had a really strong communal bonds, really seeing each other as one large family living in a tropical paradise. Enter the 1950s and 1960s. Africa is rapidly decolonizing. The Mauritius was a colony, an island country and a colony of the British that included the Chagos Islands, and they too also wanted to become independent. The British, however, delivered an ultimatum. They said, you can become independent, but we're going to get to keep the Chagos Islands. Now, this is actually illegal under international law, because when you decolonize, it's the whole territory itself that has to decolonize. You don't get to cut it up and say this area becomes independent, we keep the rest. No, the whole thing has to become its own independent country. However, the Mauritians were really kind of in a bind. They were a small island country facing the British, one of the most powerful countries in the world. So under duress, they agreed to this deal. The Chagos Islands today are still part of the UK. They are an overseas territory, and they are now called the British Indian Ocean Territory. Now let's enter the 1960s and 1970s. The United States wants to build a military base here to counter the Soviet Union. The only problem for them, though, is that there are thousands of people living here. So the British and Americans, through secret deals, decide to ethnically cleanse the area and engage in what is effectively cultural genocide. They do everything, including even starving the people. The Chagosians really have no choice but to leave the islands. Now, once the Chagosians are gone, the United States rapidly develops military bases there that are used for everything, including the Gulf War, as well as the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan. Today, if you were to look at a map, the Chagos Islands are not also that far away from Iran. And should war with Iran break out, these islands will be where missiles from the United States, as well as bombers, planes at bomb locations, would be launching from. And I think this whole thing's kind of sad, because really what we're seeing is two forms of colonization and imperialism. There's the islands themselves that have been deprived of the Chagosians, these Chagosians who still want to return. And there's also the fact that these islands are being used for the United States to project its military power. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something from this video.